Yeah. Okay then. Nice, cool. Let's move on. That is called level 2 caching. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about how we can able to apply or implement level 2 caching. There is 2 levels of cache in Hibernate, right? There are 2 levels of cache. Now we will understand level 2 cache. Now we will understand about level 2 cache. Okay. Let us understand about the cache called level 2. Level 2 cache is what the concept we are discussing for today. Let's move on. When we are working with Hibernate, we know there is 2 levels of cache. Mainly cache is used for what? To improve the application performance. Cache enables application. Cache improves applications performance. How it can improve performance? Because it will reduce the number of round trips between our application and database. It will reduce the number of trips between our application and database. In that way, it will improve the application's performance. In that way, it will improve the application's performance. Okay. For example, if you take Hibernate, there is 2 levels of cache. First level cache and second level cache. Or we can call level 1 cache and level 2 cache. Level 1 cache, or we are calling it as first level cache. Or we are calling it as first level cache. Then we have level 2 cache. That is what we are discussing today. Or it is also called as a second level cache. There is a first level cache and second level cache. What that we need to know. Level 1 and level 2. So first level cache is associated with a session object. First level cache is associated with a session object. In jPA terms, it is entity manager. In jPA terms, it is entity manager. In Hibernate terms, it is session object. Every session of Hibernate has a cache. Cache means it's a buffer, additional space. Right. Like when you know about string buffer. Buffer is nothing but cache. Additional space allocated in the RAM. Some buffer is allocated in the RAM. That is called cache. If, for example, 2 sessions are there, Assume that there are two session objects are there. Or you can say two entity manager objects are there. In Hibernate terms, session object. In jPA terms, entity manager object. So basically what I'm saying, for example, it is a session object or entity manager object. For example, this is a session object or it is entity manager object. It is entity manager. A session or entity manager, whatever it is. Now this is another session object or entity manager object. This is another session object or entity manager object. It is another session or entity manager object. Now what I'm saying here, this session object or entity manager object has a cache. This session or entity manager, it also has a cache. So basically what each session object or each entity manager object has a cache. Whenever that object is created, cache is also created. Whenever the object is closed, the cache is also closed. Now this is the cache of the first entity manager and this is the cache of the second entity manager. Like this, every session or entity manager object will maintain a cache. Whenever this object is closed, this cache is also destroyed, closed, removed, discarded, any word. Okay. This is level 1 cache. It is what type of cache here? Level 1 cache. Let's see the problem here. If, for example, there is an object in the cache of the session 1 or entity manager 1. There is an object in the cache of entity manager 1. That object cannot be used by entity manager 2 because each session or each entity manager has its own cache. Its own cache. What does it mean now? The data. Data is nothing but what here? Object. It is not raw data, it is object. Employee object or customer object or item object or product object. That object is called data. That object is called data. That object is a data. What I'm saying now? I'm saying that there is an object here. Suppose there is an object. Assume that there is an object in the cache. For example, it is a customer object. For example, it is a customer object. It's a customer object. Assume that, only assumption, okay? Now this cache has a customer object. Now this session cannot go and collect it. It cannot go there and it cannot collect it. It cannot go there and it cannot collect it. It cannot take it. Because this cache belongs to first session. So which means what? This cache can be used by, or the data in this cache is used, can be used by only the first session object, cannot be used by the second session object. It can't use the second one. Why? Because this cache belongs to whom? First session. Now this data can be used by only first session, but the second session cannot able to access this data. Each session maintains its own cache and the sessions can able to retrieve the data only from their own cache. Means what? This cache is not a shareable one. It is not a shareable cache. It's not a shareable cache. Okay. Now our requirement is we want to add one more level of cache, which is called global cache. We are calling it as what? Local. Why we are calling this cache as local? It is local cache to entity manager 1. This is local cache to entity manager 2. But we want to create a global cache. Global cache in the sense what? The cache that can be used by multiple entity manager instances or multiple session instances. This is called local cache or level 1 cache. Now, let's see. This is session factory or entity manager factory. Assume that. Assume that is a session factory or entity manager factory. I call it as a session factory or entity manager factory. It is a session factory or entity manager factory. Okay. Now this entity manager factory or this session factory has a cache. It has a cache. It has a cache. It has a cache. What I'm saying now, this session factory or entity manager factory, it has a cache. Now, I'm talking about what? Sessions. Example, here we go with a session 1 or entity manager 1, instance 1. And now this is another session or entity manager instance 2. Let us say that we have the 2 instances like this. Now what I'm saying now, this is session or entity manager in jPA. In terms of Hibernate session, in terms of jPA, it is entity manager. This is another session or another entity manager. You got it, right? This is another session or entity manager. This is a session or entity manager. What I'm saying now, I'm saying that both of them, what and what? Session 1 and session 2. Now both can access the data from this cache. Now this is called what level cache? Level 2. Each session has its own cache. That's clear. Means what? Every entity manager has its own cache. So what I'm saying here, this is the cache. This is a cache associated with entity manager 1. Now this is the cache which is associated with entity manager 2, which means what? Every entity manager has its own cache. This is local cache or level 1 cache. This is level 1 cache. This is level 1 cache. Means what? Every session maintains or every entity manager object maintains its local cache, level 1 cache. And this cache is level 2. This cache is level 2. It is level 2 cache. It is the level 2 cache. Okay, right? It is a level 2 cache. You are getting my point, right? It is level 2 cache. It is the level 1 cache. Level 1 cache and level 2 cache. Yes, level 1 and level 2 cache. So level 2 cache is shareable to multiple entity manager objects. So how the flow will be? Whenever an object is required from the database, first what entity manager will do? First it will go to search in the level 1 cache. It will not directly go to level 2 cache. First, it will go to the level 1 cache. If the object is not available in the level 1 cache, then it will search for that object in level 2. If it is not available even in level 2 cache also, then, for example, if that object is not available in the level 2 cache also, then it will move to the database and will load the object. Whenever it is loading the object from database, what it will do? It will first store that object into the level 2 cache. Then it will store it into the level 1 cache. If a session is loading an object from database, means it will first keep that object in level 2, then it will keep it into level 1. Level 1. Okay, right? This is the level 2 cache. But this is not enabled by default. Okay. It is not enabled by default. Which is not enabled? Which is not enabled by default? Level 2 cache is not enabled by default. Level 1 cache is enabled, which means what? You don't require any settings or properties. Nothing is required. Just simple. Whenever you create an entity manager object in jPA application, you can assume that what is created? Level 1 cache is created. Are you writing any separate code or any settings or any properties or any jar files? Nothing is required. Whenever entity manager object is created, what is also created? Level 1 cache is created. But level 2 cache, it's not created. Level 2 cache is not created. Got my point? Today, what we are discussing then, our intention is to know about how to enable this level 2 cache. How to add level 2 cache. For level 1 cache, we no need of writing any settings. We don't require any settings for level 1 cache. Okay. Our question is how to enable level 2 cache. How to add a level 2 cache to our application. That's what requirement. Okay. Coming to the point. I'll tell you. In order to, our intention is in order to attach or in order to enable or in order to add level 2 cache to either session factory or entity manager factory. First, we need to understand that. Hibernate has given, means jPA has provided a cache specification. Means what I can say that jPA has not given implementation. jPA has given only specification, just like a jPA is a specification. Similarly, level 2 cache specification, a cache specification is provided. And there are different vendors who provided implementation for that specification. Okay, there are vendors who provided implementation for the specification. Means jPA has given cache specification. Cache specification for providing level 2 cache at session factory or entity manager factory. Means what? The point to understand is specification is given by jPA or Hibernate, we can say, but implementations are given by vendors. Like you feel like interface is given by Hibernate, implementation class is given by some other company. That's what the meaning of understanding about specification and implementation. Specification means basically it is kind of rules, guidelines. That specification is given by jPA. Implementation of that specification is provided by vendors. Implementation is given by the vendors. Okay. There are different vendors. who provided implementation for the cache specification. There are different vendors. Different vendors provided, we can call a cache software, like a driver software in JDBC. A cache software is provided different vendors by providing implementation for the cache specification. One of the cache software is cache, which is the popular one. cache stands for Easy Hibernate Cache. What is it? Easy Hibernate Cache. cache. So what is cache? It is a software, a cache software, like a driver software, how you have. Similarly, what we have? Cache software. It's a cache software given by a vendor which provides implementation for, or which has provided implementation for cache specification. Now I can use that cache software as a level 2 cache to my application. Right? I can use the cache software as a level 2 cache. Right? JBoss has provided one cache software called tree cache. The software name is tree cache. So tree cache is a software given by JBoss, and that is an cache implementation. Nothing but it is an implementation for the cache specification given by jPA. Now we are calling it as, we can use a tree cache as a cache software to my application. Means if I want to add level 2 cache support to my project, I need to choose what? I need to choose the cache software. Which cache software? The software which has provided implementation for jPA cache specification. Right? So for example, there are 5 driver softwares are there. For example, I want to connect from my Java application to Oracle database. 5 softwares are available. Example, 5 driver softwares are available. 5 driver softwares are given by 5 vendors. 5 vendors. What I have to do? Choose one driver software, add it to your application, load into your application, so that you can use that software to get connection with your database. Here multiple are available. What are you doing? Choose one of it. Choose one of it. How do you choose one of it? Based on the services, features, X, Y, Z. They are getting my point? Similarly, what jPA has provided? Specification. What vendors have provided? Implementation. Right? There are multiple implementations available, like a cache and tree cache. What we have to do? Choose one cache software and use it to your project. Use it as a level 2 cache to your, or add it to your application as a level 2 cache. So today what we are using? cache software as a level 2 cache. cache stands for Easy Hibernate Cache. cache. Okay, right? That cache software developed by some company, vendor, software AG. I'll show you by opening the website. ehcache.org is a website of it. So this is cache. Stands for Easy Hibernate. Yes, it's Java's most widely used cache. Okay. About later you can read if you want. You can see here cache by Software AG. That's a vendor company. cache by Software AG. Software AG. This is the vendor. This is the company. Vendor means company. Companies are called vendors. This is a company. Okay, this is a software name. What is the software name? Cache. This is a software. This is a software. So now we are going to use this one. Which one? Cache as a level 2 cache to our application. Got it now? I'll write the points first. 2-3 points I will write. Then we will discuss about how we can add it. How to enable level 2 cache. See, you know, whenever a session or entity manager object is created, what happens whenever it is created? Then automatically level 1 cache for that object is created. Correct? What happens whenever a session or entity manager object is created? Then automatically level 1 cache for that object is created. Are you clear? Yes. Automatically level 1 cache for that object is created. That is the point. Okay. The level 1 cache. The level 1 cache. Level 1 cache of a session or entity manager The level 1 cache of a session or entity manager is not shareable to, or the data of better, the objects in level 1 cache of a session or entity manager is not shareable to other session or entity manager objects. Entity manager objects. Okay, clear? Okay now? Right. Everybody, what is another point I want to say? That are you writing any settings to enable the level 1 cache? No, it is automatically created. And when level 1 cache get destroyed, whenever the session object is closed or entity manager object is closed. Basically what I'm writing, when a session or entity manager, correct? When a session or entity manager object is what? When a session or entity manager object is what? Closed. When a session or entity manager object is closed, then what will happen? Level 1 cache is also destroyed. Okay. Okay. If you want to share the objects, across multiple session or entity managers, tell me what to do. If you want to share the objects across multiple session or entity managers, then what to do then? If you want to share the objects across multiple sessions or entity managers, then we have to enable level 2 cache. Do remember, level 2 cache we have to enable. Okay, level 2 cache we have to enable, means some settings are required. I'll tell you, there is single property, one property required, one jar file required. I'll tell you that. Okay, then we have to enable level 2 cache. Next, Okay, next. See, jPA, or I call Hibernate. Hibernate is a jPA provider. Has provided. What it has provided? Cache specification. Has provided cache specification. Specification. For level 2 cache. Has provided cache specification for level 2 cache. And multiple vendors has provided. What they provided? Multiple vendors has provided. What they provided? Implementation. Multiple vendors has provided implementations or implementation for that cache specification. Multiple vendors have provided implementation for that cache specification. The most popular cache, the most popular cache software is EH cache. EH cache stands for Easy Hibernate Cache. Easy Hibernate Cache. That is called EH cache. So let us move on. Let's continue. Now, our requirement is now, okay, first of all, how the flow will be, suppose if level 2 cache is, if level 2 cache is added, if level 2 cache is added to the session factory or entity manager factory. Okay, right? When, how the flow will be? See, when level 2 cache is enabled, when level 2 cache is enabled in an application, the flow of loading an object from database or flow of loading objects from database from the database will be like following. Will be like the following. Will be like the following. First, what happens? First, where Hibernate goes to check for the object by loading an object. First step is what? Hibernate checks for the object in which cache? Level 1 cache of the session. If exists, then returns to the application. This is the first step. Second step now, that is if exists now. What in case if not exist? Suppose if not exist, then tell me what next? If not exist, if not exist, then Hibernate checks for the object in level 2 cache. First it will search for the object where? In level 1 cache. Next it will search for the object in level 2 cache. Then Hibernate checks for the object in level 2 cache. Okay, in level 2 cache. If exists, then it doesn't return directly. It first copies from where to where? Level 2 cache to level 1 cache, then it is written. If exists, then first it copies the object from level 2 to level 1. Level 2 to level 1 cache, then returns to the application. This is second step. Or the third step, if not. If not means what? If not there in level 2 cache, then Hibernate goes to database. What? Hibernate goes to database to load the object. Okay, the object will be first copied or stored where whatever is. Okay, first copied to level 2, then to level 1, then returns the object to the application. Then returns the object to the application. These are all what? The steps. The flow is like this. The flow will be in this way. The flow will be in this way. The flow will be in this way. Okay? Flow will be in this way. Right. Let's start our workspace. We'll test how to enable what is a jar file, blah, blah, blah. I'll explain all these things. Okay, right. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I will explain you. I will explain you by creating an example. Look at this. Here is the pom.xml. In the pom.xml file, this is the new dependency what we need to add. What's the dependency? Hibernate -eh cache. Now this is the software. This is a software means it's a jar file. This is called which software? cache software for Hibernate. So this is the one dependency we need to add apart from other dependencies. What are the other dependencies we know? MySQL connector. Okay, and we have some jPA, entity manager, Hibernate core, blah, blah, blah. We have all these now. Now, what is a new? What is the additional dependency we need to add? Hibernate -eh cache. Now, this is called what software? cache software. We are adding to our project. Nothing but it is a jar file. It is a jar file we are adding to our project. That is called software. Driver software is nothing but what? Do you know first of all how softwares are defined in Java? In Java, softwares are nothing but what? Jar files. Right? Jar files only called softwares now. Spring software, Hibernate software. What are all they? Jars only now. Jars only now. Spring Boot software, jar file only now. Spring Boot starter you are writing now. Right. They are all software. Softwares are nothing but what here? Jar files. What is cache? It is also a software, nothing but what it is a jar file. Right. So this is the jar file. This is a software. A software. Hibernate -eh cache. Okay. Right. What MySQL we are calling this as? What is MySQL connector Java? This is the MySQL driver software. It is what MySQL driver. MySQL driver means MySQL software. MySQL driver software. So this is also jar file only, na? Yes. Yes. This is what? Cache software. What is it? Cache software. Which cache? cache software. This is one thing to add. Second change. In the persistence.xml. In the persistence.xml. We need to add two properties. Two properties. Second property is query cache. I'll explain you what is query cache, but two properties we need to add. Region Hibernate cache, region factory class. Actually, what happens in level 2 cache? Okay. The cache software will be divided. The entire cache software will be divided into regions. Regions means, suppose if you take cache software like a one round circle, if you feel that cache software is like a round circle, this is a cache software. It is divided into regions. It is divided into regions. Region 1, region 2, region 3. We can give one name for every region. One name for this region, one name for this region, one name for this region, like this. It can be divided into regions. It can be divided into regions. We can give a name. This region, in this region, I want to store only employee objects. In this region, I want to store only customer objects. In this region, I want to store product objects and some other objects like department objects. This is one region. It's another region. This is another region. This cache can be divided into multiple regions. Every region we can identify with a name. I'll tell you how to put the name. And for every region, we can do different settings. In this region, I want to store only 10 objects. How many? 10. In this region, I want to store more objects, 25. But in this cache region, I want to store only 5 objects. Means what I can do settings. So means what? This cache can be divided into regions. Regions. To divide into regions, to create the regions, we need what? Region factory class. What is it? Because who can divide it into regions? Factory class can divide it into regions. And what's the factory class name? cache. If you set the region factory class is cache, then what cache will do? It will divide the cache into regions. Where to write settings? Where to write settings like this region should contain employee objects. This region should contain only customer objects. Or in this region, I want to store only product objects. And 10 objects maximum allowed inside it. 15 objects allowed maximum inside it. Only 5 objects are allowed maximum inside it, not more than 5. Right? What's the purpose of this XML file? you have to write what? One more XML file. What is the name of the XML file? ehcache.xml file. What is the purpose of that? It is to divide this entire cache into regions and to define settings, region settings. To define the region settings, one more XML file required. What is that? ehcache.xml. How to identify every region? Every region can be identified with a name. We can give a name. Are you getting my point? Every region can be identified with a name. Yes, we can divide and we can identify with it with a name. Let's see. Here you go. I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll show you. Just a minute. You can see, look at, for example, the XML file called ehcache.xml. The XML file looks like this. The XML file looks like this. It's, what is the root element of writing this XML? ehcache. ehcache. Look at this one. This is to define settings of a region. What is the region name? I gave com.shaker.entity.employee entity is a region. I can give any name. I gave like this. Max entries, local heap. How many? 10. Means what I'm setting? How many maximum, how many entries can be stored in this region? 10. How much time an entry can sit idle? 20 seconds. What does it mean? Till 20 seconds, till continuously for 20 seconds, if the object is sitting idle in that region, it will be removed. It will be removed from that region. Continuous sitting idle means what? Not used by any session, not used by any entity manager. Then it is waste now. It's wasting the cache, right? What will happen? It is removed. So this time to idle seconds tells the seconds. How many seconds it can sit idle? How many seconds it can sit idle? 20 seconds max. What is the time to live seconds? 1 minute, 60 seconds I gave. What does it mean? That object can sit maximum for how many seconds in that particular cache, in that region? 60 seconds. After 1 minute, that object will be removed from the cache. It doesn't matter whether it is used by the session or not used by the session, right? How many seconds it can sit idle? 20 seconds. What happens after 20 seconds? It is removed because it is not used by anyone. It will be removed. What's the max time it can be there? 60 seconds max. After 60 seconds, that object must be definitely removed. This is setting. To add these times, we have to set eternal is equal to false. What we are writing? Eternal. Eternal is equal to what we are writing? False. Eternal false means we can set the timings. If I set eternal true, these timings does not work. What does it mean? The object will sit in that cache for lifelong, permanent. Permanent in the sense what? Until that cache is deleted. Until you shut down your application. Are you getting my point or not? That is called eternal is equal to true. Eternal true means Objects in cache will never die until application dies. Until application dies. That is eternal true. But I want to set settings. To define the settings, first I have to disable eternal. How can you disable eternal? Eternal is equal to false. False. Apart from this, I am not giving any name to this. This is called what cache? Default cache. Default cache. Suppose for an object means for an entity class. For an entity class, if you are not configured, these entities must be stored in which cache? If you don't set the name, cache name, then those entities will go to default cache. Suppose I have employee entity, department entity. For employee entity class, I am configuring what you go and sit in employee entity cache. For department entity, I am not setting that. Then where does department entity will go and sit? In the default cache. The entities for which cache region is not defined, for which cache region is not defined, they will go and sit in default cache. Tell me, default cache allows maximum how many entries? 100 only. 100 only. Ideal seconds 50, live seconds 120. And always keep it in mind that what ideal seconds must be less than or equal to the live seconds. You cannot give greater than. That's wrong. Configuration error. Ideal seconds must be less than or equal to the live seconds. Live seconds. What is the difference between ideal seconds and live seconds? What is the difference between the ideal seconds and the live seconds? Ideal seconds. Okay, ideal seconds tells how much time or how many seconds an object can sit ideal in that cache. Ideal means what? Not used by anyone. Next, live seconds means it is telling that what the seconds are the maximum time the object can sit in the cache. Maximum time, how much it can sit in the cache? Employee entity 60 seconds. How much time it can sit ideal there? 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Let's construct our example by copying all these files. Let's see. We are discussing application now. Let's create a project. Maven archetype quick start. So here you can see so I'm talking about level 2 cache here. I'm talking about level 2 cache. I'm creating com.ait.entity. Let's click on finish. Now I want to say y here for interactive mode. I need to provide the value as y. Finished. Now I got my project name as level 2 cache. Level 2 cache. Okay. First I'll open the pom.xml file. pom.xml file. I'll copy all the dependencies which I have shown you. I'll copy all these dependencies which I have shown you. These are all like the previous dependencies only. Only one dependency is new. Only one dependency is new. So which dependency is new here? Hibernate-eh cache. This is the only one new. Right. Remaining all like our previous dependencies only. Java 11. Let us save the file. Let us save it. Okay, let us save it. Let us update this project once. Let us update the project. Project is updated. Updated the project. Next, we need to create a resources folder. Create a folder. What's the folder name here? Resources. Okay. Right click, refresh or update. I got src/main/resources, right? Good. First, I'll remove app.java. Okay, I'm copying the meta-inf directory to my project. Now this is meta-inf folder. Meta-inf folder contains what? Persistence.xml. In the persistence.xml, what are the changes here? Cache, region, factory class. What's the value I read? What is it? EH cache. Okay, EH cache. And after, of course, in level 2 cache only, we have one more type called query cache. I'll explain the query cache next. First, I'm writing the property. In the same example, we'll discuss both the level 2 cache with query cache. This is to enable query cache. Use query cache true. This property I gave in comment. Hibernate.cache.provider configuration file resource path. It's a very big property name. Value equal to what I written? Class path : ehcache.xml. Actually, ehcache.xml, we need to keep the location of this file is resources folder, not in meta-inf folder. Where I can keep it? In the resources folder, I need to keep it. Resources folder. If you are keeping in somewhere else, no problem. Suppose this ehcache.xml file, this is a concept to understand here. What's the default location? Where should I keep this XML file? Where should I store this XML in my project? Under resources folder, not meta-inf, under resources. Okay. But you can also save this file, store it anywhere. Anywhere. Anywhere in the sense, create a new package and store this XML file in that new package. Your choice. Or you can create a subfolder. Under resources, create your own folder. Your own folder you create and write this XML file there. Your choice. If you are not writing this XML file under resources folder, if it is somewhere else, then you need to configure this property. You have to configure this property. Value is equal to not class path : then location of your XML file. This ehcache.xml I can maintain outside also, not only in my project. In my system, at some F drive or somewhere C drive, I can write this XML file. What's the file name? ehcache.xml. Right? I can store this XML file anywhere in the system. If you are not storing in resources, what you have to do? You have to tell the location. What's the property to configure the location of the file? This is a property. What's the name? Hibernate.cache.provider configuration file resource path. Provider configuration file resource path. This is what you are supposed to write. Okay. But in my project, means in our current example, where I am going to write my ehcache.xml file? In the resources folder. In the resources folder, if I am keeping this XML file, then this property is not required. Na? I kept in comments. I kept it in comments. What happens in case if I'm keeping it in C drive or D drive of my system? Then I need to write value is equal to d colon slash so and so folder slash ehcache.xml. If you are keeping your XML file in anywhere in the system, but where I am keeping my file in the resources folder, obviously. I don't need of this, but I gave it just for your reference. Next. Let's copy it into my resources folder. Look at this. Here I am copy pasting the file. Now, where is my ehcache.xml? It is under meta.inf folder or is under resources folder. Where is my XML file? It is under resources folder, not under meta.inf. Meta.inf folder and ehcache.xml file both are in resources. Okay, both are in resources. Okay, if you look at any files like this, it doesn't mean that this file is under this folder. This folder and this file are parallel. Parallel means both are in same folder. What's the folder name? Resources. That's what the meaning of it. That is what the meaning of it. Okay. Nice. Okay, no issue. Next one. I want entity class. So my entity class name is com.ait.entity.employee entity. Okay. Right. And there is one more tag that we added. What is it? Shared cache mode. Shared cache mode. Okay. Defines whether caching is enabled for the persistence unit. If caching is supported by the persistence provider. When set to all entities will be cached. When set to none, no entities will be cached. So when set to enable selective, only entities specified as cacheable will be cached. Tell me what the value I am setting. Enable selective. What does it mean? If I, for example, if I write all, what does it mean? All entities will be cached. None means no entities will be cached. Enable selective means only selected entities will be cached. How can you select that entity is cacheable or not cacheable? Annotation is there again. If I want to make an entity as cacheable entity, @cacheable is annotation. What annotation? Where should I write? Where should I write that annotation? At the class level. Which class level? Entity class level. That's it. You're writing already @entity. What you're writing @table. Now you can write what? @cacheable. Means we are selecting that entity. All means what? You no need to select. All means what? All entities are cached. None means no one is cached. How can you pick up only this entity, that entity in my project are only cacheable? Add annotation. What is annotation? @cacheable. @cacheable. Okay. Sure. So what are the possible values of this shared cache mode tag? All, otherwise none, otherwise enable selective. All means all entities are cached. No need of writing. No need of writing cacheable annotation for selecting it. None means no entity is cached. Selective entities, if you want to cache, then write enable selective. Here I am going to write my entity class. Okay. Let's copy this. Done. I have not added any Lombok dependency. I am not showing Lombok here. You know, in Spring already. Generate all the setters and getters by myself manually. Okay. Two-string method. If you want, you can write. If you want, you can add two-string method. Otherwise, if you don't want, you can leave it. I wanted a two-string method, so override two-string method as well. Done. See the annotation here. What's the annotation? Cacheable. If I remove cacheable, then these entities, which entities? Employee entities are not cacheable. They are not stored in cache. They are not stored in cache. Which annotation enables or allows the entities to store in the cache? At the rate cacheable. This is called meaning of selective. If I have two entity classes now, on top of one class I am writing cacheable. On top of the other class I am not writing what? Cacheable. Then what? The first entities are cacheable. The second entities are not cacheable. This is the meaning of what? Selective. We are selecting it. Okay, guys, we are selecting it. Next. And we are not writing any DAO, EMPL. Directly I'll write main class. To test this application, I will write main class. Okay. I will write main class. One new, let's create a package, com.aat.test. Let's create a new class. Tester. Have a main method directly. What is the persistence unit name I gave here? Sample. Sample, not a test, I gave sample. Tell me first how to create entity manager factory. Entity manager factory. Factory equals to persistence is a class dot create entity manager factory of sample. Of sample. Okay. It is not test now, it is sample. Because I gave the name sample there. Look at this. Entity manager 1, EM1 equal to factory dot create entity manager. Entity manager EM2 equal to factory dot create entity manager. Tell me how many entity manager objects I have created? 2. So what these EM1 and EM2? What these two contains? EM1 and EM2 are the two entity manager objects. What they contain? They will contain the own cache. Level 1. Every session or every entity manager object maintains its own cache. So there are two entity manager objects. They maintain their own cache now. EM1 and EM2. Plus both will share what? Both these entity managers will share what? Global cache. That global cache is associated with which object? Entity manager factory. What's the object name here? Factory. Factory. Totally with these 3 lines, how many caches created now when I run this code? Three caches created. One is global cache. Two are the local caches. Two local caches are created for what? Two entity managers. And one global cache is created for what? Entity manager factory. Okay. Let me write here. I'll open MySQL. I'm writing MySQL. Use test. Select star from EMP. EMP table does not exist. Excellent. No problem. Wait. I'm connecting with this EMP table, but EMP table does not exist in my database. If EMP table does not exist in database, I need to create it first. No problem. I'll create one EMP table with EMP NO as int. It is a primary key. Ename, it is varchar. Then I need sal, double, department number, I need int. That's it. Table creation is not a matter. Table created. Insert some sample records. Insert into EMP, then values. 7788. Scott. 4000. Department number 20. One row inserted. Insert into EMP values. 7878. John. Okay, John. 7878. John. 3010. Department number 10. Again, insert into EMP, then values. 7171. Miller. 5020. Enough. Commit the records. Okay, now I have table and records. Now I have the table and I have the records. Select star from EMP. 1, 2, 2 records only. 7171 also. Okay, maybe I think it is not inserted. Okay, no problem. 2 records are enough, no problem. For the first record, I inserted 7788, 78. 2 records are there. It's sufficient. It's sufficient for testing. 2 records are there. 1 record also enough to test our application. So 2 records is more than enough. 2 records is more than enough. Now, how many entity manager objects I created? 2. What I'm writing here, EM1, employee entity, E1 is equal to EM1 dot find. Who is that? Employee entity comma entity dot class comma 7788. What is 7788? ID, employee ID. Tell me. Initially, how many caches are created when these 3 lines are executed? 3 lines. 3 caches are created. One cache is global cache. For whom? Factory. And for these two, local caches are created. One global cache created into local caches are created. That is correct. One global cache is created and two local caches are created. What are the two local caches created for EM1 and for EM2? Excellent. Now, employee entity E1. E1. Correct? Tell me, whenever I am loading object from database, I want to load an object from database, I'm calling find method. On EM1, then tell me what Hibernate will do now. What Hibernate will do if I write em1.find? Yes, what Hibernate will do is a question. Whenever I'm writing em1.find, what Hibernate will do then? What is the flow? First, Hibernate will go and check for the object in whose cache? Level 1 cache of EM1. Entity manager object 1. But just now we created the objects now. Caches are empty. Cache is having data or empty? Empty. What it will do then? Level 1 cache empty. Next, what Hibernate do? Global cache. That is also empty. Because just now created now. Then goes to database and selects. Selected object will be stored in level 2 cache, level 1 cache, then to my application. Are you getting my point? Yes. Try to understand the point here. Selecting from database means we can able to see the query on console. Select query displayed because selecting from database. If it is not selecting from database, we won't see the select, right? Let's give a separator. Here we don't want to print employee data. That is not intention. Intention is to see whether it is loaded from database or loaded from cache. Whether it is hitting the database or loading directly from cache without hitting database. That is intention. Okay. Employee entity E2. em2.find of employee entity dot class, comma 7788. Tell me what is the flow now. First, what Hibernate do? First, what Hibernate do? Hibernate will first go to level 1 cache of EM2. Tell me, is there any employee object stored in that cache with employee ID 7788? It is empty. It is a second EM2 cache, na? It is EM2, not EM1. Don't confuse now. Right? That cache is empty. Then where Hibernate goes next? Level 2. It will search for the object in level 2. In level 2, is there any object, employee object with ID 7788? Yes, it is there. It's there. Then what it will do? It will copy object from level 2 to level 1 of EM2 and then returns to application, which means what? It is not hitting the database. Not going to hit the database. Okay. We are testing. Our intention is we want to test whether it is hitting the database or not. We want to check whether whether there is a query execute on database to load the object or not? Or without executing a query on database, is the object is returned from cache or not? That's what we want to test. Means we want to see whether cache is working or not. Right? If level 2 cache is not enabled, I'm telling you, if level 2 cache is not added, then what will happen if this code is run? For EM1, it will go to the cache, not exist, go to the database. For EM2, there is no object in cache, go to database. Means how many queries executed? 2 queries. 2 queries to load the same object. For the ID 7788. Employee. Entity. E3 equals to EM1 dot find. Okay. Employee entity dot class, comma 7878. Tell me what happens now. Tell me what happens now. Question is this object loaded from database or loaded from cache? Sorry. Is the object is loaded from cache or is the object is loaded from database? Yes. This object I'm talking about. Is this object is loaded from database or is it loaded from cache? Huh? From DB. Why DB?
From database.
What is the ID of this object? 7878. First tell me, where does Hibernate go? Where does Hibernate go first? Level 1 cache. It's not there. It jumps to level 2 cache. There is an object in level 2 cache, but ID is what? 7788 object. But this ID is what? Means what? This object does not exist there. Then jumps to database. Database. Okay. Now we will run this application. This is E4. EM2. Then what happens this time? Simple question. Will object is loaded from database or cache? Cache. From which cache? Level 2. Level 2. From level 2. Let us close. Later again I will increase this application. Application code we will increase. We'll test ideal seconds is working or not. Okay. Let's run. Look at this. This is one select query. One select query. This is one select query, na? Yes, it is one select query. Okay. This is one more select query. Totally. Understand? Totally. Right? How many select queries are executed for this entire application? 2 only. But how many times I have called find method? 4 times. 4 times with the same entity manager or different entity managers? Different. This is EM1 ID 7788. EM2 ID 77. 2 different entity managers. Here EM1 7878. EM2 7878. If there is no example, assume that if there is no level 2 cache enabled, then tell me What happens now? How many times Hibernate will hit the database now? 4 times it will hit the database. How many times? 4 times. 4 times it will hit the database here. Correct? But because of level 2 cache, how many times it is hitting? 2 times only. 2 times only. If you want to check really 4 times hitting, disable. Disable what cache? Level 2. How do you disable? Go to persistence.xml file. In that XML file, one property is there. 2 properties are there. One tag is there. 2 properties are there. Put them in comments. Put them in comments. Go to pom.xml. Go to pom.xml. Hibernate-eh cache dependency is there. Put it in comment. Run the application. Then how many times you can see the select query? 4 times. 4 times. Let's see. I would like to ask you. Means I would like to tell you. Here I am writing em1 dot em1 dot clear. I can write detach entity. em1 dot detach. Detach means I want to remove it from em1. That's what the meaning of detaching. Okay, remove the given entity from the persistence context so that it can become detached entity. Okay, I can add detach. Otherwise, I'll say remove from cache. Clear. Listen clearly. Which one? Which cache I cleared? Whose cache I cleared? em1. em1. Everyone, get it clearly. Listen to me. Got it? Which cache I'm clearing? em1. em1 I'm clearing. Yes. Question. Clear means what happens? em1 means em1 dot clear means what happens here? Cache cleared. Cache is cleared. Whose cache? em1 local cache. Not the global, no, local cache cleared. Local cache is cleared, not the global. Local cache cleared. Getting my point? Right. My question now. If I add em1 dot clear here, then again I'm calling em1 dot find now. What happens this time? What happens this time? For example, okay, for example, I'll change ID is 7788 only. Tell me what happens if I read em1 dot find now. If I read em1 dot find, then what? Then what? Come on, guys. The object is again loaded from the database or not is a question. Think and tell me. Think and tell me, is the object is loaded again from DB or not? Huh. What happens now? Yes? Okay, please tell me. What happens now? Which cache I cleared? Local cache I have cleared. I have not cleared the global. I have cleared the local cache, that's all. You clear the local cache, but the object is available in global cache also, na? What happens if you clear the local cache? Next time, when I am loading an object, if it is not available in the local cache, then Hibernate goes to where? Global cache. It is there in global cache, na? It will copy from global cache again to local cache. Getting my point? Okay. Next. I am not writing clear. I don't want clear. I'll keep my code in try block. Thread.sleep. $25,000 milliseconds. Catch exception E. Just observe it. I'll tell you. I would like to keep or remove this code. It is not required because we have already tested it. Look at this. First I'm loading. Tell me what happens initially when I'm loading it. Tell me what happens when I'm loading it. If I'm writing em1.find, if I'm loading, it's a first time. First time means it is loaded from database. It will be copied to level 2 cache and also copied to level 1 cache. That's for sure. Very good. This employee object will go and store in a cache region, right? Because you look at my ehcache.xml. I gave the name as fully qualified class name of my entity class, correct? Means that this employee entity will go and sit into this region. That region name you should write like a fully qualified class name of your entity class. Okay. What the ideal seconds I gave? 20 means how many seconds? How many seconds object can sit ideal in this cache now? In this region of the cache? 20 seconds. How many? 20. 20 seconds it can able to sit there. It can able to sit there for 20 seconds only. For the sleep time I gave in the middle to stop the execution. To temporarily stop the execution, I gave 25 seconds time. Tell me now, after 25 seconds, next statement will execute now. But by this time, what happened? That employee update is deleted. From where? Global cache. Why? What is the ideal time seconds? 20 seconds only it can sit ideal. Ideal means without work. Ideal means sitting idle. Idle seconds 20. If within 20 seconds, if it is not used by any session, then what? It is removed. For the sleep time I am giving. What happened now? The object is removed after 20 seconds from cache. What happens when I say em2.find? What happens if I say em2.find? It is loaded from the database again. Why? It is there. It is removed already. Its time is over. Its ideal time is completed. Our ideal time is lapsed. Let's see the output now. One time query executed. 25 seconds we are waiting. Application is not terminated. 25 seconds you have to wait here. After 25 seconds of sleep time, you'll see one more select after the 25 seconds. Wait for 25 seconds. Sleep time is 25. See, after 25 seconds, what happened? One more time hitting the database. Select means hitting only. Why it is hitting the database after 25 seconds again? Because reason is what? The object is removed from the cache. Means you can say ideal time is working. Live time also will work. We no need to worry about that. Let us do one thing. Okay. Now this time, 15 seconds only I'm setting. What is the ideal time? 20. 20. I can set 19 also, no problem. 19 seconds I'm setting. 19 seconds I'm setting. So how many times this application will hit the database to load the object? One time only. Not 2 times, one time only. Verify it. Application is not terminated. Still this red button is active. You are not getting message called terminated here. You are not getting message called terminated here, means it is not terminated. This red button is active, means application is running. Now it is terminated. But tell me, after termination, totally how many queries that you are able to see on the screen? Only one. Means what you understood? Only one time the object is loaded from database. This is called level 2 cache. How we can use it? Level 2 cache is shareable to what? Level 2 cache is shareable to all the entity managers, right? Every entity manager also has its own cache, but that is only for one entity manager. Other entity manager cannot share the data of it. But global cache, it is shareable to what? All the entity managers. Okay, we did that. Okay, level 2 cache is working. In level 2 cache only, there is a concept called query cache. Query cache is, okay, it's better to have an idea. I'll explain with example. Means what? In level 2 cache, query parameters, query JPKL query, whatever you type. You know how to run the JPKL query now? Query parameters, result of the query will be stored. Where? In level 2 cache. Because in level 2 cache only, there is a separate cache allocated for query cache. Query cache is not third type of cache. Cache of 2 types only. What and what? Level 1, level 2. In a level 2 only, there is a part called query cache. That cache will store only queries, query parameters, and result. What happens if you run the same query with the same parameters next time? The same result will be given without going to database. This is called query cache. Got my point now? Right. Where query parameters, values, and the result are stored in query cache. In query cache. How to enable query cache? Already we added property. What's the property I've added? Hibernate cache use query cache. What's the value? True. True. Right. So what is the purpose of this one? What is the purpose of this one? What's the purpose of this one? It is to store the query, parameters, values, and result. You are getting my point? Yes. These are the things to be stored. Where? In the query cache. How to enable it? Use query cache. If I remove this property, if I add only the first property, then query cache is not enabled. Means what? Queries, parameters, values of query, and result are not stored in cache. Let me show you an example. Example means same tester class only. You have to test all these things by yourself at the time of executing your machine. I'm keeping it in comment now. I'll copy the code. Look at this. I will explain you. And I no need to print the result, only I want to test it now. Okay, I'm done. Look at this. Okay, observe here. Observe here. I'm creating first one, entity manager. It's quite common. This is my query. Look at this. This is my query. What's the query? Select E from employee entity E, where E dot sal greater than question mark 1. This is what query? Is it SQL query or JPQL query? What query it is? JPQL query. You are getting my point, right? It's a JPQL query. You are getting my point, right? JPQL query. Getting my point? It's a JPQL query. It's not SQL query. Because you are using entity class reference variable. Do you know what the shortcut of writing this query? We can remove. Select E, we can remove. I can directly start with from. From also correct. Shortcut. From. Look at this. I can directly from. I'm setting salary 1000. Look at this now. This is my query object, typed query object. You know this already. JPQL queries. Executing the JPQL query. How much value I'm setting? 1000. 1000. How to make this query as a cacheable query? It's not entity, cacheable query. Query. There is a method. What's the method? Set hint is a method. Set hint of set the cacheable property true. How to execute this query? Call the get result list. Okay. Listen here. I'm giving a separator. Same thing here also. Same thing here also. But this is with entity manager 2. Same query. Same query. Same query. Again, I want to execute. My question to you now. Already, while executing this query, tell me this query, this parameter value and the result will be stored in query cache. Query cache. What happens when I'm executing same query with the same value of the parameter? When I'm executing this query, what will happen now? A result will be selected from query cache, but this query does not execute on database. Does not execute on database. Means how many times my JPQL query is going to execute on database now? One time only. Let's see. Is it executing one time or multiple times? We'll identify that. Let's run this. Look at this. How many times my query is executed on database totally? One time only. Why not two times? But actually I'm executing that query twice. How many times is executed? One time on database. Second time, the result is taken from query cache only. To know the difference, I'll set the value 2000 here. Tell me, what is the value set for the parameter for the first query? 1000. But for second query, 2000. Parameter value same or different? If a parameter value different means result also different, na? Then what will happen? The result is not given from query cache. This query will again execute on database. Why? Why this query is going to execute on database one more time? Because parameter value different. Tell me when the result will come from the query cache. If you are executing same query with the same value for the parameters, then only the result will be returned from query cache. Query cache. But here what's the difference? Parameter is different, value is different. Value different means result also different. Huh? Then the result will come from cache or from database. Database. Tell me how many times this query will execute now? 2 times. Run this and see it. How many times now? 2 times. Why 2 times? Because query same query, but parameter value different. That's the reason why 2 times execute on database. Twice execute on database, right? This is called query cache. Right? So means in query cache, what are stored? In a query cache, what are stored? Query will be stored. Parameters, values of that query will be stored, and a result of the query will be stored. What happens next time? Same query is executed with the same values for the parameters. Then the result will be returned from query cache. If a parameter value different, then the query will be executed on database, but not result is not given from query cache. Because parameter value different means result also different, na? Yes. This is called enabling query cache. First of all, how can I make my query, or how can I store my query parameters values and the result of the query into the query cache? By setting this property. This property is important. Which property? Set hint of arg.hibernate.cacheable, true. Observe it. I will explain. Let us do one thing. One more test we do it. What the test we do it is parameter value same. Parameter value same. Observe it. Parameter value same. 1000 only. Look at this. Same query. Same value for parameter. How many times I'm executing? The same query with the same value for parameter. How many times I'm executing? 2 times. 2 times. What will happen now? How many times this query will be executed on the database? 2 times. Not 1 time now. 2 times. Why? Because I removed this property. What property I removed? Cacheable true. If I don't set cacheable true, by default is false. False means what? query result will not be stored in cache. Cache doesn't store it because it is not cacheable query. How can I make it as cacheable query? By adding this property. By enabling this property, it becomes cacheable query. It is non-cacheable query. This query cannot be cached. Let's run. How many times it is sitting? 2 times. What's the value I am setting? 1000. Same value, same query. But how many times it is hitting the database? 2 times. Why 2 times? Same query, same value for parameter, same result, na? But why it is hitting twice? Because we are not made our query as a cacheable query. How to make it as a cacheable query? By setting the hint cacheable property. This property will play an important role. This property will play an important role. This property will play an important role. Let us run this. How many times hitting now? 1 time only. This is a testing of which cache? Query cache. Query cache is not a 3rd level cache. Don't say the 3 levels of cache is maintained by jPA. How many levels of cache maintained? 2 levels only. Query cache is a part of level 2 cache, not part of level 1, part of level 2. Without enabling level 2 cache, you cannot use query cache. Are you getting my point? I'm telling very clearly. What I'm telling you very clearly? What is my clear statement? Without enabling level 2 cache, you cannot use query cache because query cache is a part of level 2 cache, not level 1, level 2 cache. If you are enabled level 2 cache means you can utilize query cache also. Got it now? Done. DOD. Not done of the day. DOE. Done forever. Right? This example, I will make it as a zip file. You can test it. This is more than sufficient. Because explicitly Hibernate is not used in the project. jPA will be used. Data jPA. You are learning in Spring. What you are learning in Spring? Data jPA with Spring Boot. That's what every project uses. What is that? Spring Data jPA with Spring Boot. There, you no need of writing this code first of all. Right? You are writing interface. Extends jPA repository. Your repository, say employee repository, extends jPA repository of entity class name, comma, data type of ID variable, primary key. Automatically are getting save, find by ID, find all, save and flush, delete by ID, blah, blah, blah. All the methods are getting now? Very good. Are you writing the class there or only interface you are writing? Interface only you write. That is what advantage of data jPA. But sometimes you should write your own queries. @queries annotation for that. Custom query. Right? Named queries, custom queries you can write. You should know about JPQL there. Those queries are JPQL queries only, na? Or you can write SQL queries also. You are getting my point, right? JPQL queries are SQL queries. You should know how to execute the procedure function. You should know how to apply these annotations, one to many, many to one, many to many, one to one. These are all what you learn in Hibernate class. This is what you should know. Composite ID, embeddable, embedded ID, whatever we discuss in Hibernate, all these annotations will be used in data jPA. But only the thing is what you don't write the class there. You don't need to write IMPL, implementation class. Only what is enough to write? Interface is enough to write. Interface is enough to write. Am I right or not? Because data jPA given like that. Maybe in future, no need to write DAO. Currently, only implementation class removed. Tomorrow, You don't write DAO, no interface also. Maybe we'll get technology like that. Okay, right? In future, we can expect that. We never expected that without writing an implementation class, DAO operations are done. But it's happened today. Tomorrow, what we can expect? You no need of writing DAO interface. Directly, it will perform operations. Just add one jar file dependency. Tomorrow, easy. Day by day, it is becoming easy. Right? Very good. In future, I'm expecting just with our eyes blinking, sit in front of the system, blink the eyes, automatically code generated. Nothing is impossible in this world. Nothing is impossible. Maybe we don't know. Like in Balaya movies, right? Right? If you say, chair will come from that side to this side. Kanti chuputo sampastadu. Right?
Okay. Sir, can I have a doubt? Can I ask?
That's good. Nothing is impossible, but that may take many years. Technology may come like that. We don't know. Okay, right. Sir, by that time, we may not be available here. Okay. Maybe after 100 years. It will happen definitely. Okay, right? It will happen. It will happen directly. We don't know that. We are unaware of that. Okay, right. So the advantage is whatever you learned here, these queries, these relationships, these annotations, these are all you have to implement, you have to apply them in data jPA. In the data jPA, you have to use all these things. You have relationships in every project. You should know what is one-to-many, many-to-one, join columns, what is bidirectional, what is unidirectional, how to write JPQL queries, named queries, how to store the data in cache. Currently, we are using what? EH cache. In Spring applications, we use mostly Redis cache. What cache it is? Redis cache. That's a service layer cache. Redis cache we use mostly in the projects. But here we are using EH cache. EH cache. Okay, right? That's what the importance of learning this Hibernate. Okay, so that it helps you in understanding Spring data jPA. ID generators or whatever it is, these are all will help you in data jPA, right? That's what we discuss in our session. Okay, that's for the session. Thank you. I'll share this example code as a zip file. You download and practice it. Thank you. Right, guys. Okay. So I am done with the session. I am done with the session. Yeah. Yeah. I'm done with the session. I will share this example code as a zip file now. Practice it using query cache and all, just to practice of it. Okay. Do a practice of it. All the applications you do practice. I will share today's document, whatever the document that we have today. This document and this example code I will share as a zip file. I'll post it now, and you can able to go through the example once and try to do the practice of it. Okay, na? Okay, that's for our Hibernate session. It is sufficient. Whatever you learned so far is more than sufficient. More than this is not required in Hibernate for you. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for attending this session.